Welcome to East Meets West. You know him as the host of the podcast Talking Politics and Religion Without Killing Each Other, and the second most important person from Freehold, New Jersey, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Corey Nathan.
And he is the 7-time Emmy-winning broadcast journalist, born and raised in beautiful Los Angeles, Rick Garcia. And now I know why you won all those Emmys. Doing that
Really?
doing that intro, I mean, that's Emmy-worthy in itself, Rick.
Does it kind of make you think of Gary Owens? Does that name ring a bell for you, or are you way too young to remember Gary Owens?
You know I'm way younger than you. I'm like at least 50 years younger than you. You know that, right?
And it shows. It shows. All right, let's hop into this thing. NBA playoffs. Any surprises for you so far? Now, let me go down the bracket here real quick, and we'll discuss. And I'm just going to talk about where everybody stands, and then I want to get your input on some of these series. So the Thunder off to a 1-0 series lead. The Lakers are off to a 1-0 series lead. A little bit of a surprise in the Denver-Minnesota series as that series is tied 1-1. The Spurs hold a 1-0 series lead there. No surprise. The Pistons trail Orlando. So that I'm sure you've got some thoughts on that. Orlando with a 1-0 series lead there. The Cavaliers, 2-0 series lead over Toronto. The Celtics, 1-0 series lead over the 76ers. And another surprise, I don't know how things are holding up over there at the Nathan household, but the Knicks and Hawks are 1-1 in their series. So any of these other than, well, tell me your surprises first of all.
So if you watched the play-in game with Orlando, that first game with Detroit was not that big of a surprise. It is a surprise because it's a 1 versus an 8, and it's but it's only one game. That said, I like the way Orlando's playing. If you're in particular, what really caught my eye is their movement on offense. That team is just so in sync, and it might have just been a contrast because Detroit might be a little rusty. They could slide into the 1 seed and were resting a few players the last few games, so maybe there was a little rust there. But I'm telling you, man, there's beauty in motion when you're watching Orlando. They're still a relatively young team, so they have some gaps. I don't think they're going to sweep this series, but boy, if you watch that first game, you can't count them out.
Yeah, and both of us, I think, we're having a hard time buying Detroit to begin with. Having said that, though, weirder surprises have happened, and I think whereas I think in the West, Denver, Minnesota, not a huge shock that Minnesota's even that series. That's a good basketball team. I mean, for anybody who thought Detroit or Denver rather was going to run away with that series, they were mistaken. But in that, let's go to your team, the Knicks and the Hawks. You guys crushed the Hawks in the first game. Yeah. That was probably the easiest game of the playoffs so far. What happened in game 2, my friend?
I think they got cocky in the second half of the fourth quarter. I think they just rested on their laurels. They just assumed they're a great fourth quarter team, which they have been all year. And there was a moment. I don't know if you watched the last moments of that game, but man, how do you not call a timeout in those final seconds? I don't understand how you don't call a timeout and reset, because they had to play for what looked like they assumed it was going to be a 2-point lead for Atlanta. It was only a 1-point lead. So the play that they ran, first of all, they rushed down the court. They could have called a timeout and taken it out mid-court, but they rushed down the court, it just wasn't the right play. Mikal Bridges wasn't the right guy to take that shot. There was just so much wrong with the last few seconds of that game. But overall, they shouldn't have been 6 down with about 10 seconds to play in the first place. They were dominating that game for 3.5 quarters.
So any concerns for you at this point? I mean,
there is a concern. I want to see Karl Anthony Towns playing on both sides of the floor for the entire game. I don't want to have to rely on Mitchell Robinson coming in to see some defense down low. I don't want to have to rely on hitting ridiculous percentage on their threes. So that they're relying on some things that you can't count on for a 7-game series. So, but what I am encouraged to see is that their defense has been stepping up. There's very rarely a time down the floor when Atlanta has anybody shooting the ball where a Nick isn't in their face. So that's definitely encouraging. And I didn't see that all year from them. It's that 2 foot rule, just that I guess the Nova Knicks learns back in college. So they are suffocating on defense. I want to see that consistently throughout the entire game of every game now.
If the Knicks get through this series, you're going to have to face Boston. Any thoughts on what you've seen from the Celtics so far?
Man, I'd love to be a homer and say the Knicks are going to get through that. But the Celtics have not skipped a beat. With Jason Tatum coming back at the top of his game, it's as if he didn't miss any time at all. And candidly, I think they're a better coached team. They're just better in every aspect of the game. I'd love to be surprised. I'd love to be proven wrong. I just don't see the Knicks getting past the Celtics in a 7-game series.
Over in the West, you would think that, and I know some Lakers fans rejoice, but Mr. Glass Half Empty that I am, I realize without Kevin Durant playing, the task for the Lakers much easier. And it's going to get harder if he comes back in this series. And I don't know that Luke Kennard, of all people, can put up close to 30 points a game for this entire series. What I will say to you, what I like about what the Lakers are doing in their series with Houston, is they've continued with this mentality that LeBron is not the first option. You would have thought that he would have taken over this game. He did with his assists. He did with his rebounds. And while he did score, his job was to penetrate and then dish it off, which is kind of the plan when you have Luca and Austin Reeves there. And by the way, it doesn't look like either one of those guys are coming back anytime soon.
So not even Luca?
Yeah.
If they get to
I just get the vibe just from the sound of Redick and some other team officials that it wouldn't shock me at all if Luca does not come back at all for this series. And then the second round is a whole other story. Look at hamstrings. I've mentioned this a million times. In the years of covering all these teams, that's the one injury these guys are afraid to get. Fracturing a bone heals pretty fast, but those hamstrings are so delicate.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah. So here's the. Go ahead.
I'm not counting LA out. I think that Luke Kennard and Hachimura, players like that, can raise their game specifically because you have LeBron dishing them the ball and absorbing so much attention. So I think they can step up there the same way that we were pleasantly surprised with Austin Reeves stepping up his game the last season and a half. And I'm not bullish on Rockets stock, even if KD comes back. Partly because KD is KD. He's an individual. It's what we talked about last week. He's an individual talent. So can they make it a tighter game? They can if KD comes back. But he's not going to lift. He's not going to lift the rest of the team. It's just one scorer. And I think that's something that, as team-oriented as the Lakers have proven to be, I think they can. I'm not saying that they're going to win the series or certainly not go sweep, but I'm not counting them out by any stretch.
Okay, and like your Knicks, the Lakers have the unenviable task of having to play OKC as their next opponent, which means that 100% healthy, the Lakers would still be underdogs in that series.
Yeah.
Has anything? So I had Thunder and Celtics in the finals. Has anything? It's early, just a couple of games into the playoffs. Has anything changed your opinion of who you think is going to wind up in the finals?
No, I mean, is Cleveland's going to? Cleveland's not getting past the series, even if they come out of the first, second. They're not getting past the series with Boston. I still see Boston and OKC in the final.
All right, we're going to move on to baseball, and let's talk about, we're not that far into the season still, but it is fun to kind of summarize what's going on as we get about 21, 22 games into the Major League Baseball season. If the NBA playoffs don't have your family keeping you away from sharp objects, the baseball season might. And we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Great movie, by the way, with Clint Eastwood. Let's talk about the good. We know the Yankees are who we thought they were. They lead the East. Cleveland leads the Central with Detroit, not far behind. Again, all early. Evidence of early is the fact that the Athletics are in first place in the West. They're
one game over 500.
They do that. They do that early, and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
In the National League, you've got the Atlanta Braves on top. Cincinnati Reds on top in the Central, which is maybe a little bit of a surprise there. And of course, the Dodgers are leading the West, though that's a tight division over there. So that's the good. Let's talk about the bad. And
Wait. You got to let me respond to that.
Please. Yeah.
First of all,
yes,
it's not that good. The Yankees are the best in the AL.
Yeah.
And they're only 4 games over 500. I know we're only 25 games into the season,
Right.
but they're only 4 games over 500. So everything, at least on the AL side, is lukewarm. On the NL side, yeah, of course, the Dodgers and even the Padres are for real. I don't think they're going away anytime soon. But there's also there are mirages that I'm seeing. I don't think the Reds are going to continue to play at a 650 clip. I don't think the Braves are going to continue to play at close to a 700 clip.
No, but I think they'll be there in the end. You agree?
Yeah, they'll be strong, but I mean, they're not going to be, the best in the NL.
They're hot. They're hot right now.
They're hot right now. Plus, there are other teams. I'm not sure who you'd like to talk about. There are other teams that are underperforming that'll come back, come back to where they should be. So, and that's going to affect the Braves. So,
by the way, that's the ugly, and we haven't gotten to the ugly yet. We're just talking about the good, and admittedly, both of us agree that when it comes to the good, it's still early. A lot of teams start slow. Now, let's talk about the bad. There was a big competition to get the best reliever in baseball, Edwin Diaz. The Dodgers won.
Edwin who? Who are we talking about?
That sweepstake, Edwin Diaz. Well, you should know his name now. I mean, this guy who said when he played in the World Baseball Classic when he was one of the best relievers with the Mets, and he hurt his knee, and then this World Baseball Classic rolled around, he signs a big fat contract with the Dodgers, and people say, hey, are you going to play in the WBC again? He said, absolutely I am. And guess what? Edwin Diaz is hurt again. He is going to have to undergo surgery. Now, if it is true that all they're doing is cleaning up some loose particles in his elbow, that's not a horrible sign for the Dodgers, because that means he would be back right around July. And that would be like making a trade for a player if you can get this guy back and allow him to heat up as you get close to the playoffs. But it's still bad, man. This is a guy who has had a little bit of a history of injuries, but man, when he's playing well, he's incredible. Do you think that this was a bait and switch for the Dodgers? Do you think that this guy was sold to the Dodgers as being the savior and healthy, but wasn't?
So first of all, I think with Edwin Diaz, this goes with the territory. But let me. It's the Dodgers. And since we were just talking about basketball, there's something that's been happening in basketball the last several seasons, like the last decade or so, called load management. So we haven't necessarily seen this in baseball, but the Dodgers arguably have won the last 2 World Series going through seasons where they're doing load man. They had a starting pitching core that, much of which missed huge chunks of the season. So Edwin Diaz, I would not be too concerned about because it's the Dodgers. And they're just simply, he's going to be hitting his stride right as they're hitting the playoffs. But here's the thing. The bigger picture with Edwin Diaz is when he's at his best, he's one of, if not the best closer
incredible
in baseball. But I said, and it might sound like a total Mets homer when I said Devin Williams and Edwin Diaz will end up with similar numbers over the next 3 years. Not because Devin Williams is a better pitcher. He's a good pitcher, but not one of the, not one of the 2 or 3 best closers in the game. He's, top 10, top 15 closer. But the reason is the most important ability is availability. And Diaz has not always been available, especially around the World Baseball Classic. He missed an entire season, and then it took him at least half a season to get back up to his top form. So this goes with the territory with Diaz, but I wouldn't be too worried about it. It's the Dodgers, after all; they know what they're doing.
You're right. Now, what if it would have been a team? What if it would have been the other way around, and it was the Mets who had re-signed Edwin Diaz, or let's just say he never played for the Mets and they signed him to a big fat contract? It would be a much greater blow, you admit, right?
Well, then you would have to make sure that no sharp objects are out and that we don't visit any tall buildings that I'm near any window.
So I think that's something you might consider anyway now as we talk about the ugly. We've talked about the good, we've talked about the bad, and now we're going to talk about the ugly. The Mets an 11-game losing streak. Your thoughts, my friend. Your thoughts.
All right. So it is going to be so sweet when the Mets make a turnaround, a historic turnaround, and come back to be the best team in. Okay. In all seriousness, 2024. Let's remember that it was right around Memorial Day that they were 11 games under 500 before they went on about a 4-month run and pushed the Dodgers to 6 games in the NLCS that year. That's just a couple of years ago. Right now, yes, 11-game skid is a historic skid. They haven't lost this many games in a row in over 20 years. But they're not even 10 games under 500. So that's not, we're not talking about a team that, and the other thing is, they're not going the same way that the Braves are not going to be playing at a 700 clip all year. The Mets are not going to be playing at a 300. They're not going to keep on losing games because at the end of the day, they still have strong starting pitching, solid bullpen. They're strong in the field. What's been missing is the bats. And if you look up and down that lineup, it's not like these guys are career 200 hitters. They don't have a lineup that's made up of guys that are trying to break the Mendoza line. They're all underperforming all at the same time. When Soto comes back, he's gonna improve hitting all around him. But it's not going to be this way. So I'm watching today's game. They got Nolan McLean pitching. I'm encouraged that this skid is gonna end sooner rather than later.
Okay, and by the way, I agree with you. The Mets are not this bad. I will tell you, though, I had a chance to go catch one of the games at Dodger Stadium in that series with the Dodgers.
Thanks for inviting me, by the way.
I forgot to bring my broom. I should have brought my broom with me.
You forgot to bring your buddy, too.
But here's what I have to tell you, though. Watching, and Bo Bichette is a good example, watching these guys flailing at the plate.
Oh, my God.
I mean, swinging at everything. So the one obvious solution is plate discipline. I mean, these guys, they got to start taking some walks. They just have to, if you're going to strike out looking, so be it, but start looking at some pitches.
So I have a theory, and we might be talking about this for years to come. And the theory is that AI, the Mets' 11 games losing streak is proof that AI will not be taking over the world. And this is what I'm talking about. If you look at the Mets coaching staff, it's a bunch of like 30-nothing-year-old brainiacs. That's basically what they have. So when you know this as an athlete, especially for an art form like hitting, you can't have your brain with all this information with 10 degrees here and when your hot zone there. You have to go up, see ball, hit ball, right?
Yep.
I think this brainiac coaching staff, of all the moves that David Stearns made in the offseason, the one that I question the most is the coaching staff that they put together. They're a bunch of 30. I'd rather see a grizzly old vet who's been through a few seasons that could talk to these guys and say, hey, you know what I do when I'm in a batting slump? I tie my shoe the other way. I put a stick of gum behind my ear. I do a little hula hoop before I get up to the whatever it is. But having a real coach, because you listen to Keith Hernandez on the broadcast, the Mets broadcasts, he sees something very different than how they're getting coached by these brainiac kids.
So that's a pattern that's happening in sports in general, and part of that comes from the fact that that's what the Dodgers did with their hitting instructors, with some of their pitching coaches. They're more like scientists, they're more like doctors.
But it's different when you have a Dave Roberts as a captain of the ship.
But let me tell you how it pays off and how it should work. What these guys will tell you is, we're going to do all this analytical, scientific stuff when you're in the cage.
Right.
We're going to do this in between on days off. But when you get to the plate, stop thinking.
Right.
And just swing. And eventually, it's like they say in golf, it takes 1,000 swings, right, to correct something or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So if they're taking, you're right. To your point, you're right. If they're taking this information and they're going up to the plate and thinking all this stuff, like a robot, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
But when you're not at the plate and it's not game time, that's when you focus on all the scientific jargon and all the different ideas and the degrees and the angle of the pitch and all that stuff. So I think it pays off in the long run. but I don't think they're executing properly right now.
No, they're not executing properly. And Carlos Mendoza, I'm sure he was great in support staff, but he's proving that he cannot be the skipper. He just can't be the skipper. They need a Joe Girardi. They need a Beltran. They need somebody who's been through the wars at the major league level as a player, so we could talk to these players on that level, as opposed to on a theoretical level.
Got it. All right, let's move on. That was the good, the bad, the ugly, but it's early, and so nothing to see here, I guess, necessarily.
Yeah.
But we'll have this conversation, down the road and see where things stand. This is a big week in the NFL. I mean,
Yeah.
I really look forward to the NFL draft. It's so much fun to speculate. My team, the Rams, are really, really good at keeping their cards close to the vest, and they wind up drafting people very often you've never heard of. No surprises at the number one pick in the draft. I'm just going to read off a couple of names. There are those analysts who will say this isn't the most talented draft that we've seen, but you never know, right? You don't know till 5 years from now how these guys are going to pan out. No surprise, the Raiders are going to draft Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana. The Jets, who have the number 2 pick, there's a lot of questions as to whether they keep the pick or whether they trade out. Is it way too early to go with another quarterback? Because teams get really, really panicky when it comes to QBs. The belief is that beyond Mendoza, maybe Ty Simpson is next, and some say that he's a late first-round pick. If you're a team that panics, you might draft those guys a little early. So the Jets have the number 2 pick. The mocks have them going after an edge rusher. David Bailey from Texas Tech would be the guy. Arizona number 3 pick, Tennessee 4, and then your Giants check in at number 5. So the Giants are in a really good spot. Let me get your thought. Do you have any thoughts on the draft? And then we're gonna transition into what the Giants did to prepare for this draft.
So one of the things that jumped out at me, I'm a big SEC football fan. Lisa's all her family went to Auburn, so I've been unfortunate. I wish I could root for Alabama, have a winner, a perpetual winner, but we've been rooting for Auburn. What jumped out at me, though, was that on a lot of the draft boards that I'm looking at, there are no Alabama players in the top 20. The QB, Ty Simpson, is on a lot of boards in the low first round, but that's the first Alabama player. That's got to be the first time in 25 years that you haven't seen 2 or 3 Alabama players in that top 20. So that's been one thing that jumped out at me. But the other thing is not a lot of boards I see have the Giants picking Jeremiah Love. Oh boy, could they use a Jeremiah Love? Because that's
to
a
go
player.
with Scadaboo. So would that be redundant with Scadaboo there?
No, not necessarily. Because number one, I'm not convinced.
They're different.
That Scadaboo,
I know they're different.
They're very different. If they are in the backfield, it's a thunder lightning kind of a thing. But I think Jeremiah Love is a more dynamic player than Scadaboo, and because of Scadaboo's size and the way that he plays helmet first, I'm not convinced that dude could stay on the field. So
Love is the most talked about prospect coming out of the draft, no question.
Because Love is just as good of a receiver as he is a running back, and he can fill in at a tight end slot as much as he could fill in a halfback slot. So I'd be and they could really use that. That would make Jackson Dart had a good rookie season. That would make Jackson Dart that much. He'd be surrounded by that much more talent, which he needs.
So, off-season wise, we agreed that your Giants were the most effective team in the off-season just because of the acquisition of John Harbaugh, their head coach.
Yeah.
And now they make this move. We were talking about Dexter Lawrence wanting to get paid more money. The Giants pulled the trigger on a huge trade, which helped set up their draft by trading defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals. Lawrence is happy because he gets an extension, a $28 million extension. The Bengals, they're a team that really has needed to work on their defense. It's a win for them. But they turned around and traded a first-round pick for Lawrence, the number 10 pick in the draft.
Number 10, yeah.
So now the Giants is 5-10, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, 5-10. That's right.
And so, that's a great position to be in. There's a belief that the Giants will turn around, flip that 10, and move down in the draft to get more draft capital.
Right. If that's the way they go, I'd be a fan of that. Get a couple of 2s and stack your offensive line, or maybe keep the 10 and draft somebody in the middle of the defensive line, right? But as far as seeing Dexy go, Dexy wasn't that sexy in 2025 if you were watching those games.
Don't let the door hit you in the
seriously, good riddance.
Yeah.
He had a half of a sack. Half of a sack. So here's what I predict is going to happen is Dexter Lawrence is happy. He got his $28 million. He's going to have a good first 4 or 5 games, maybe good first 10 games with Cincinnati, but he's going to fall off. Yeah, I'm just not convinced that dude hasn't seen his best days. He had a couple of good seasons for the Giants, but 28 in the NFL, especially playing big on the line that way, 28, you might as well be 36, 37. You saw some Rams that are absolute first ballot Hall of Famers that had basically 8 years, 9 years. But man, that's hard work down there. 28 is I'm not saying over the hill. He's going to have another good year, maybe 2, but he ain't at his peak. And the Giants aren't betting on 2026 being their Super Bowl year. They're setting it up so that 2027 and 2028, which is Dexter Lawrence is not going to be an all-pro player circa 2027.
Yeah. I don't think it's a horrible move for Cincinnati. They're desperate for defense, so right away plugs a hole for them. A first-round pick, number 10, is a lot. But then you look at what's number 10 going to be? Is it going to be somebody who's going to start for me right away? Cincinnati feels like they've got a window that's closing a little sooner, whereas the Giants are right are building. So I think it's a win-win for both teams, though I would give the edge to the Giants on this trade.
Absolutely. Yeah. One for my team. All right.
One for your
moving in the right direction here.
So 1 out of 3 ain't bad. That's 333 if you're playing baseball, right? 333 would help the Mets right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
One guy could hit 333.
Let's do it.
All right. You ready to pop that culture?
Let's pop that culture.
Let's pop that culture.
Pop that culture.
This is every year in the NFL, they call it Black Monday, the Monday after the regular season ends, when all the coaches get fired. And we had kind of a Black Monday when it comes to television shows, because this is the time of year where there are a lot of cancellations that take place. I will tell you, I'm just going to read off a couple of them that might ring a bell with some folks. CBS canceled a show, DMV. We know about Stephen Colbert going away as a late-night show. They also canceled a show called Watson. Star Trek Starfleet Academy for the Trekkers. That has been canceled. A couple of entertainment shows, Access Hollywood and Access Daily, canceled by NBC, and then it could go on and on and on. My question for you is, I don't know if anything was canceled recently that caught your attention or broke your heart, but just in life in general, and I'll start with me too to help you kind of think this through. I think the cancellation that got me the most when it happened years ago was X-Files. When X-Files went away, there were no expectations that show was going anywhere. When that show went away, I thought, wow, what am I going to do? Yeah. So I will say that as far as a show that really caught my attention when it was canceled and was very disappointing. Anything for you?
I didn't think of it the way that you just asked that question, but the first show that comes to mind, it wasn't canceled. It was more like it retired, which is MASH. I was just old enough to have been watching the show with my dad. Actually, it was one of his favorite shows, if not his favorite show. So I was just old enough to be watching that show the last 3 or 4 seasons, and we were already watching reruns. So I became pretty versed in the first 3 seasons of Frank Burns, and then the different iterations of that show. If you follow those seasons, but when that show went off the air, especially that final, the final episode, it's still one of the TV episodes that ranks as high as some of the Super Bowls in terms of how watched it was. But that was, I could, that had a big effect on, on me, if that's the question.
That is, and it's interesting because for, you can almost draw a line to sports. When your favorite athlete on a team, eventually it's time for him to say goodbye.
Yeah.
When it happens naturally, it's great. But when it's a shocking, Luca Doncic being, dealt from Dallas, it hits you hard, right? When it's expected. And there are times where I say, gosh, I wish that guy would go. No, I've loved him all these many years, but now it's getting, and that happens in boxing quite often, where Ali, the greatest of all time, fought 3 too many fights. It's hard for some of these guys to walk away. And by the way, here's the difference. You talked about MASH, in those early days of television, if I can sound like the old guy, folks don't remember, you had 4 stations, right?
Yeah.
It was ABC, CBS, NBC. So everybody was watching the same show in those days, pretty much, if it was a good show. Now, with 1,000 channels on cable and then streaming apps, and it's so diluted that it really is niche watching. For us, our favorite show in our house, and it happens to be one of the best shows on TV if you believe in the awards acknowledgements, is The Pit. And that's a show that we're addicted to.
Yeah, I love that show. What a good show. So when I was looking at the list of which ones had been canceled, especially the scripted shows, I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you watch DMV, the writing wasn't quite, they were trying to be something that they couldn't quite achieve. Watson, the acting just wasn't there. But The Pit, boy, oh boy, every aspect of that production, the due diligence they put in to present the reality of an emergency room, the level of act. I'm a New York theater rat, so I know good acting. Across the board, the acting is just impeccable. The writing, the stories, the character, everything about that show, I just absolutely love.
And here's, for me, which is interesting, because I'm a horror movie fan, so it's a genre that I've watched from the time I was a kid, which explains a little about me, is that you'll never, ever see me turn my head in a horror movie. The only show ever in my life I've turned my head away from because it was too gross for me is The Pit.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because
it's so realistic.
So real. It looks so real.
This is how much I love that show. I hate looking at open wounds and
that's me.
So I'm literally covering up a part of the screen, like with my eyes. I'm covering up.
That's what I do. I do this kind of thing. And what's interesting, because again, I can watch Michael Myers, decapitate all day long, and I don't turn my head.
The only one. There's a show. There's a show that they made about our town called Santa Clarita Diet.
I never saw it, but I heard all about it. Yeah.
Oh my God,
yeah.
it's a great show. It's so campy. I could watch the violence in that because it was so over the top.
It's entertaining, but on The Pit, man, it looks like the real deal, and I just can't keep watching it. So for
folks that aren't from Santa Clarita, I got to tell you. So Santa Clarita Diet is about cannibalistic, man-eating vampires at night who are real estate agents and whatnot during the day.
During the day.
If you want to know about Santa Clarita, the town that Rick and I live in, watch Santa Clarita Diet. It's very realistic.
Yeah, and a lot of realtors too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay, so let's bring it full circle back to sports. When do the Mets cancel their manager?
Oh, it's any day now. I mean,
think so, really? Okay, so you're on the edge then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, listen, if he can win a series, it'll give him a little bit. He'll go on. He's already on life support.
Gotcha.
I thought that they were going to do it yesterday, coming home, from a road trip going into this home series. But I don't think he lasts past Memorial Day. I mean, unless they go on an 11-game winning streak. But I don't know if they're just pit-patting along at a 500. This dude's not going to make it past Memorial Day.
Well, that's it for us, sir. Hopefully we'll make it to Memorial Day. I'm Rick Garcia. He's Corey Nathan. It's East meets West. Thank you so much for joining us.
Don't forget to follow us, rate us, review us, and tell a friend about this show. Let everyone know you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your favorite podcast. This is fun, Rick.
We'll see you next time, Corey.
Baby got